welcome to Presence Dialogues, and I'm your host, Joe Diamo. A Presence Dialogue is an approach to communication in which participants tune into a frequency of consciousness, a quality of listening beyond the personal level, with the accent on the novelty of the present moment. We tune into a field in which we are at best conduits for the deeper intuitive intelligence of the heart. And today I am happy to have Chuck Sarasso here. And Chuck Sarasso is an artist and improvisational musician. I guess you could say improvisational artist too, right? Why make the distinction?
Right.
And I had the pleasure of meeting Chuck fairly recently, and we've played together. And the more we talk, the more we realize that we're on the same page, basically. So it's been wonderful, deepening relationship and improvisational interaction, not only with the music, but also with Presence Dialogues. I was happy to find out. So, I think we should just start in on it. There's so much I want to talk to you about.
Sure.
And I was fascinated with just a blurb about your past, how you were involved and you were a teacher of Eckankar for many years, right? 20 years, 25 years?
25.
25 years.
Yeah.
And at some point, Chuck felt, this was the path of soul travel, getting out of the body, traveling to other realms and acquiring knowledge and higher consciousness and so on. And at some point, Chuck felt that something was missing. And without getting into too much detail, we could possibly cover this in the dialogue, that the real work for him became embodying the spirituality. And that, of course, involves tapping into the present moment more, the whole field of the moment. And then, of course, that bleeds over into the music and in the art. So that the art more and more comes from a deeper place, not the surface mind so much, but more from a deeper place of the heart and an emptiness and an expansiveness of consciousness, which is what we are attempting right this moment, right?
Absolutely.
We'll just because we already have a lot of content, so we'll just speak what wants to speak as we hold the space for this dialogue.
Yay.
So tell me about how, when you improvise, what's going on inside you in your consciousness when you're improvising. Say the piano. We'll start with that, and then I want you to play a little bit too, sort of demonstrate.
Well, so what I'm learning is, for piano, for music, it's about being just fully receptive, or as fully as I'm capable at this moment, to just receive, to just hear what is happening. And it's interesting because, so when you and I have improvised, I'm just listening to what you're doing, and then I'm not trying to think. I'm trying to let all thinking stop. And I'm I'm just focusing on the listening. And I find that in the listening, an impulse to respond rises up. So improvising is like, it's hard to say, but it's almost like more of a received experience than a conceived experience. It's more like an intuitive, insightful experience where suddenly I hear this, But when I say I hear this, it's almost more like I hear it as I play it,
Hmm.
but I feel the impulse in my body, and I feel the impulse to where to put my hands, and then I hear it along with the hearing of, like, with what you're doing when we've played together.
Right. It's my experience of that kind of thing is that when you're hearing it when you're playing it, because you're not you're not using your mind as much, to
Yeah,
remember what it sounds like. Oh, I remember what it sounds like. Now I'm going to try to do it.
yeah,
So it's more direct.
right. There's
Yeah.
no lag. There's no, the receiving is the hearing in the playing.
There's no lag time. Yeah. So, and to me, that applies to being in presence, no matter what your activity is. That same kind of
Yeah.
process can happen. Like
Well,
right
that,
this moment, the,
yeah,
the the effort is, to do exactly what you said on my part, and I'm sure on yours, is just to be here. It's almost like we're just being a conduit as much as we can by quieting the mind, listening deeply, which is definitely part of presence, being in presence, to listen. And I would go so far as to say I've discovered, like right this moment, listening with my body as well. So I'm aware of my body as much as I can. While I'm looking at you and while I'm talking, I'm aware of my body and my sound of my voice. So that you're sort of listening to yourself and to others with your whole being, or more of your being than
yes,
just your head, right?
exactly. Yes. You're not thinking about a response, or you're not, just in a thought process. You're in that receiving process. And yeah, that's like I've um, come to see it as really all the senses are engaged.
Right.
The more present I am, the more alert I am and not caught in thought, the more I'm noticing my visual sensation, my auditory,
Right.
I'm noticing smell, I'm noticing my physical sensation, the weight of my body, and all of that, just what you're saying. And yeah, I think this is what Buddha talked about. The awake state is simply that, awake to all of what's happening, but more importantly, awake to all that's not happening. The pure awareness of being,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Right.
and recognizing that's the ground, and then staying with that awareness, and then just noticing everything else and living. Yeah, I've thought about writing, and I've thought about a title for a book about what awakening is to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought the title would be "Living the Improvised Life."
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice. So that it's like we're not in that way, we're not the doers, or it doesn't seem like we're the doers. It's just we're the observer, the observer eye, the observer self, more and more.
yes, yeah,
And then it knows exactly what to say too, You don't
yeah,
have to do anything like with an ego doing,
right, yeah,
like, oh, what am I going to say to Chuck now?
yeah.
Just it'll come. Yeah. And so trust is part of it too, I feel.
I think at first it's a lot about trust, but
Don't
then
you think?
after we get more skillful with it, then it's no longer about trust because there's no more doubt around it.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. If and if I don't have anything to say, whether that's musically or with my words or in painting, then I won't say anything because there's nothing that needs to be said or done.
That's, I think, you have to, and that's where trust is part of it too. In other words, it's okay, whatever's going to happen and is happening in the present is okay, because otherwise, you're using your mind to judge and pick and choose things and feel guilty about it or feel good about
Right.
it, feel
Yeah.
whatever that can
Yeah.
obscure the pure flow of of conversation,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
whatever way we're conversing, musically or whatever right now.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I think because when you say trust, and I totally know what you're talking about because the self-doubt, the questioning, oh, did I say the right thing, did I play the right thing, did I still experience that, but I also notice at times where there's no dual nature to it, there's no me having to trust something else, there's just presence.
Yeah.
And so it's no longer in those moments, there's no longer someone needing to be trusting.
Right. Yes. And we, it's a practice in a way, right? So
Yeah,
it's, so we
I
go
think
in and out of things. It's not like we
yeah,
necessarily, maybe at some stage there is this, you get anchored into this way, where that doesn't happen, but maybe, but that's speculation. Um, so you'll do it, you'll find yourself reflecting and then you're sitting there playing, like I'm playing the drums, you're playing piano, whatever.
right,
And it's like, and then you're not really in the playing. You're thinking,
yeah,
why did I
you're,
do that? Oh
yeah,
shit, like,
yeah,
and then what? The
yeah,
whole thing like sort of
yeah,
goes down a few notches in terms of the energetic aspect of it.
yeah, absolutely. We get caught in the mind, and
Yeah,
suddenly we're not listening as closely, and so therefore we're not receiving as clearly, and then we're thinking, oh, where am I? What just happened? Well,
right.
here, okay, so I'm doing this, he's doing that, and then we try to think of something to do, and so when I hit that point, I find if I just stop and just listen, just focus back on the listening, then it comes back. It's like, oh, okay, I'm here again.
Right, right. It's like meditation. If you're meditating on the breath, you go into thought, you recognize that. Next thing you know, you're back to the breath.
Right. Yeah.
It's just this process, right?
Yeah, I did that for years, like 30 years of sitting. And, but then I reached a point of realizing, like, okay, I can sit still and be pretty quiet, pretty empty, and just sit there in presence. But then as soon as I stand up and step out into the world, I'm back in thought mode. And so that's where I thought, I want to practice now not sitting. I don't want to be sitting anymore. And so then I started doing things like setting a timer. I wore a watch. And so I got a watch so I could set a timer and just set it to go off every half hour so that I would be like, okay, where's my attention?
I see. As a reminder, as a shock
Yeah, yeah,
reminder.
that's just where's my attention? And it really helped. I did that for a long time, I think well over a year or two. And then I would go for walks like around the lake nearby and just, focus on being present and not getting lost in thinking. And so it's why I say I think I've been working with this for a lot of years now, and it does seem that it's a skill and we get better at it just as
With
playing
anything.
music, painting, it's an art. And then I realized that playing music and painting are actually my greater spiritual practice now.
Well, the question always comes up, even when I was a Buddhist. I was a Buddhist for about 10 years, something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
It always comes up like, we'd have walking meditation.
yes,
So that would be like from one perspective, it's the transition between sitting and being in the world.
exactly. Beautiful.
So,
Yeah,
and that's something I noticed happened with me fairly recent, that I would be sitting so much, I'd be meditating so much. I might meditate for 2 hours or something. and then I achieve these states, or that states become present that are like very quiet, expansive, it's very natural,
Yeah.
and then the next day I get up and I have a gig and I have to go, to Denver with the traffic and everything else, and all of a sudden, it's like there's got to be a bridge being a spiritual practice between sitting and being in the world, right? Because we're not going to live the path of the monk, and even if we did, it's like we're not really integrating our whole being into consciousness, into awareness, right?
Yeah, well, I think, with like all the years of your practice, we get to a point where it gets kind of easy to just sit and go deep.
Right.
And it's, fun and wonderful to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But what I started sensing, I wasn't a Buddhist, so I didn't know about the walking meditation. But what I sensed in my own process was I need something to integrate when I'm active in the world,
Right.
and paying attention when I'm engaged in every aspect of my life. And so that became my practice. And then I realized, wow, painting and playing music were huge.
Huge in what way? What do you mean?
Well, huge in the opportunity to practice it at a really deep level, because both involve the whole body,
Yeah.
all the senses, both require this full presence of attention, or whatever we can muster at any given moment, and what comes, whether I'm moving a brush or on the keyboard, is coming from that emptiness, that received.
Mm-hmm.
It's like then having insight. It is the experience of insight in the movement of the brush and the movement of the hand on the keyboard and the movement of concepts in the mind, the experience of having aha, realization.
Do you notice that practicing in the world deepened your practice of sitting?
Well, where now I don't really sit.
You don't sit now? Or let's say your practice of presence in the world, then I think I heard you say deepened your piano playing and because when you were then playing piano or painting,
Mm-hmm.
there would be another level of depth maybe, or a little bit deeper or something.
In everything,
Right.
in just everything.
Yeah.
Like that's why I realized if I were to write a book, I would maybe call it Living the Improvised Life.
Right.
Because it isn't just at the piano, or isn't just when I'm painting now. It's when I'm driving, it's when I'm talking with someone, it's when I'm teaching, when I'm even watching a movie, when I'm recognizing this place of, I like the term emptiness. I think that's a nice description. But I'm recognizing this emptiness much more continually now. So yeah, the practice of shifting from sitting to, setting a timer on my watch and just practicing being attentive to awareness. The idea of turning awareness in on itself and just doing that throughout the day, and it became more and more automatic, more and more
Yeah.
just becoming the ground now.
Right. I think it's important.
That's why I say, like, it seems then the element of trust starts out as an important aspect, very important, and then there does seem to be this progression where the element of trust starts to dissolve because there's no longer someone who needs to trust. The separate identity begins to dissolve, and as it dissolves, the need to trust is dissolving as well, because it's just one thing here.
Right. because the need to trust, not that it's a bad thing, but it involves duality, right?
Exactly.
Need to
Exactly.
trust me needing to trust something else, whatever that
Yeah.
something else is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like becoming, it's becoming the path in a way, becoming,
Yeah.
right?
And
So,
can I interrupt for a second? Charlie jumped up.
okay. Well,
He
that
wants,
arose in the moment. So,
he wants to say hi.
yes, that's right. That's good. Hi,
Say hi to
Charlie.
the show, Charlie.
You're part of this, Charlie. You've made yourself part of it, or you've become part of it. You didn't make yourself become part of it,
He is always.
right?
Yeah.
So, with that, all that in mind, would you be willing to just maybe just do an improvisation in that spirit? Do
Sure.
improvisation on the piano for us.
Sure.
And I would love to do another one at some point. We will for sure. I would love to.
Mhm.
Where we're both improvising together too, and then we can also continue that same process in our
Oh,
dialogue.
I would love to do that. That would be great.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, yeah. Why don't you just whatever.
Okay.
Nice. How did that feel for you? What was your experience?
I started, and the first thing that popped in my head was do a low note, and then uh, do that note in octave, high end on the piano, and then just stay with that for a bit and just listen to it. And then I found as I listened to that and just kept listening, then the impulse came to do those um, chords. And so I found that I was sinking more and more into it as I kept listening, and then where to go with each sound after that became more clear and more clear. And then I may have ended it kind of quickly, but I wasn't sure how long.
Uh-huh.
I could have kept going, but
Yeah.
I had an impulse to maybe keep it not
Right.
long, so that we're not just
Yeah.
using up in that.
Yeah.
But the idea, so that it was, yeah. So it started lightly, and then it deepened with
Yeah.
each
Yeah.
move, with each new input.
It's interesting because
And
I
so
think,
it's like I even feel a little high, like right now.
uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, well, I do too. It's interesting because I, participating in that with you, I could
Mhm.
almost hear you hearing it.
Beautiful.
That's what it
Yeah.
sound. That's what experience. That's my experience. Like I
Yeah.
heard it, but I also maybe imagined, but I had some sense of your hearing it with me.
So did
And
what come
huh?
fit? Like, so what I did that fit for what you're? you were hearing in it?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it felt logical. It felt,
Uh,
logical in that sense that it's made sense in that,
uh,
in that
yeah.
intuitive way.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
and the spaces made sense. It's interesting, isn't
well,
it? Because
yeah,
it's like another language in terms of how to describe this kind of stuff, isn't it? Because
it is.
it's
Yeah, well,
so
yeah.
easy to make it
Not, not conceptual. There's no no
right,
word for it. But
right.
it's neat. It's like when we've played together, it's so fun to really, we look at each other and we know we're in the same moment, the same space. We're hearing the same thing, you know. And even when we start doing like rhythmically the same thing or interval wise, we'll start doing something very similar spontaneously at the same time.
Right.
That's such
Right.
a cool experience.
Well, maybe we can end with this because I would love to do a series with you.
Sure.
No, I don't
Yeah.
want to. We could do it all now. We could
Yeah.
be like,
Well,
as far as I'm.
however you want.
Yeah. Let's finish with this.
Okay.
Um, this last thing that what came to me was, you know, really because there is only one mind,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
not just a trippy, hippy dippy idea.
No.
It's actually
Yeah.
true. It's like there
Right.
really is one mind. We're like sharing one mental field, you
Yeah.
know, and different levels of mind, whatever. But
Yeah.
we're sharing it. It's not. There is no real division
Right.
except in our concept, right?
Exactly. In our
Right.
concept.
So therefore, it makes sense if you're really in tune. If you're really in tune, that's the question, right?
Hear the
You're in
same.
your own head and you're in your divisive mind, then you're not going to be, you know one mind in a way. So it's like,
Right.
but if you're
Sure.
actually tuning in, which is what you do when you improvise, artistically,
Mm-hmm.
then you at some point you start sharing that same mind, and then you know what to play and not to play.
Exactly. Exactly.
Beautiful. It's a To me, this is like this is meditation in action.
Yes.
This
Yes.
the playing ideally, and actually should be meditation in action. Otherwise, I think it just brings it down. I think no matter how brilliant your concepts are, and you're thinking, you're doing this and that, wow, it's interesting, but it doesn't have that quality of consciousness, of awareness
Correct.
that will bring others into that if they're similarly tuned in.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let's leave it at that for now, and then continue here with Chuck Sarasso on presence and the arts, and presence in life and in everything we do. And I want to thank from Presence Dialogues and from Chuck Sarasso. And my name is Joe Diamo. Thank you, and tune in next time. Thank you.